Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. Chica Mendiga finds documents lost to a millionaire. But what she asked in exchange for the documents left the millionaire speechless and crying. Daniela walked the busy streets of Mexico City, feeling the heat of the sun on her skin and the weight of the envelope she firmly held against her chest. But today it could be different. He had found something that could change his life. When he approached Arturo's imposing mansion, his heart accelerated. He stopped in front of the huge door and, determined, he rang the doorbell. The door opened slowly, revealing a tall and severe woman. The keykeeper looked at Daniel from top to bottom with an expression of disdain. Asked the keykeeper in a cold voice, making it clear that Daniela's presence was not welcome. Daniela kept her posture firm and responded with determination. I need to talk to Mr. Arturo. I have important documents for him. The keykeeper laughed dry and sarcastic, moving her head. Mr. Arturo does not receive beggars. If you want money, go to work, she said, starting to close the door in Daniela's face. Daniela quickly put her foot on the door, preventing it from closing. I will not go until I give these documents to him. They are very important, Daniela said with urgency and determination. The keykeeper stopped for a moment, doubting. There was something in Daniela's firmness that made her reconsider. Left the door open and entered the house, disappearing into the hallway. Daniela waited, beating her heart out while trying to control her anxiety. A few minutes later, a tall and elegant man appeared. It was Arturo, the owner of the mansion, and he seemed extremely irritated for having been interrupted. What is happening here? Arturo asked impatiently, while his eyes examined Daniela with a mixture of distrust and displeasure. I found his documents, Daniela said, spreading the envelope. Arturo looked at her with an expression of skepticism before taking the envelope. He opened it and quickly verified the content, his eyes enlarged when recognizing the documents. Where did you find this? He asked suspiciously in his words. That does not matter now. What matters is that I came to deliver them, Daniela replied, trying to keep calm despite Arturo's intimidating gaze. Arturo closed his eyes, clearly unconvinced. My documents cannot be in the hands of a beggar like you. You are lying. If you want money, go to work. I do not have time for this, he said, starting to close the door again. I will not go until I give you your documents, exclaimed Daniela, firm and determined. These documents are important and you need them. Arturo stopped, his hand still at the door, looked at Daniela for a long time, evaluating his seriousness and determination. Something in the tone of his voice and in the intensity of his gaze made him reconsider. Then Daniela took out some documents from the folder, and Arturo saw that she was telling the truth. Very well, he finally said, opening the door again. Come in, let's talk more about this. Daniela followed Arturo through the immense mansion, feeling out of place between the luxury and the opulence that surrounded her. The corridors were decorated with works of art, expensive and luxurious furniture, creating an overwhelming contrast with his daily reality. Arturo led her to a room to be elegantly decorated and pointed out a sofa for her to sit on. Sit down, he said with distrust. Explain exactly how you found these documents and why you are here. Daniela breathed deeply, trying to organize her thoughts. She knew that this was a crucial moment, and she needed to be clear and honest. I was walking down the street when I found these documents in a pile of garbage. I recognized their name and address, so I decided to bring them here. I know they are important, and I thought I should return them personally, she explained, waiting for him to believe in his story. Arturo remained silent for a moment, processing his words. He still seemed skeptical, but the sincerity in Daniela's eyes began to move him. She knew that she needed those documents, and the urgency in her voice made her reconsider her initial position. Very well, he finally said, still cautious. I'm going to check all the documents, but you must understand that I can't just trust in someone who appears out of nowhere. I'm going to investigate this." Understanding his mistrust. "Thank you," she said with gratitude. "I just wanted to do the right thing." Arturo observed her for a moment more, his expression softening slightly. "Let's see," he replied, still skeptical, but slightly more open. Arturo examined the documents carefully, the expression on his face oscillating between relief and surprise. Really important, as Daniela had said, and he knew that recovering them was vital. After a few minutes of silence, he looked up at Daniela, who was sitting tensely on the sofa, watching him with expectation. "These documents are, in fact, mine. You did a good job bringing them here," said the... "I knew they were important," Daniel responded, his eyes shining with a mix of relief and apprehension. Arturo put the documents aside and stood up, walking towards a nearby table. He grabbed his wallet and started writing a check. "How much do you want for having found and brought these documents?" he asked, the pen still moving. Daniela frowned and shook her head vigorously. "I don't want money. That's not what I'm asking for." Arturo stopped writing and looked at her, clearly confused. "So, what do you want?" he asked, genuinely curious. Daniela breathed deeply, knowing that what she was going to ask was something unusual and risky. "I want you to treat me like a daughter for a week," she said firmly, but with a vulnerability that she could not hide. Arturo was still for a moment, the words of her resonating in the room. He lowered the pen slowly and turned to look at her completely, eyes open in surprise. "What?" he asked him while trying to process the petition. "I never had a real family. I want to know how it is to have a father, even if it is only for a week," explained Daniela, being sincere and with a tone of despair. Arturo breathed deeply, trying to understand the motivation behind the petition. He had expected her to ask for money or something material. But this was completely unexpected. Something in her vulnerability touched a part of which he thought was asleep. He had lost his father when he was a child, and he knew how the absence of a father could mark a person. "Are you asking me to treat you like a daughter for a week?" he repeated to an unbeliever. "Yes, that's all I want. I don't want money. I don't want anything material. I just want to know how it is to have a father, even if it's just for a short time," Daniel replied. Arturo remained silent, reflecting on the petition. The idea seemed crazy, but at the same time, there was something deeply human and moving in her request. She had never thought of having children, especially after her father's death. But now this young man was in front of him, asking for something so simple, but at the same time so deep. "During a week, I will treat you like my daughter." Daniela felt a wave of relief and emotion. I could not believe that he really had accepted. "Thank you, Mr. Arturo. This means a lot to me," she said with evident gratitude in each word. "Arturo. Only Arturo is fine," he corrected him with a slight smile. "Let's do the following. We start tomorrow. You can stay here in the mansion during this week. I'm going to prepare a room for you." "Thank you, Arturo," said Daniela, smiling for the first time since he had arrived. Arturo got up and rang the bell. The keykeeper returned with a severe expression, but now a little more curious. "Prepare a room for Daniela. She will stay with us for a week." Arturo instructed the keykeeper to raise an eyebrow, but said nothing. Daniela followed the keykeeper through the long hall, feeling relieved and at the same time nervous, so she would come next. Arturo stood still, watching the two disappear through the corridor, still reflecting on the unusual request. Arturo's wife, named Lorena, arrived home with several shopping bags, satisfied with her new acquisitions. She was a woman accustomed to luxury and comfort, and his shopping afternoons were a routine that he liked to keep. When entering the mansion, he saw Arturo sitting on the sofa in the living room, with a serious expression on his face. This made him stop for a moment, feeling that something was out of the ordinary. "Arturo, what happened?" Lorena asked, placing the bags on the floor and walking towards him. Arturo looked at her, breathing deeply before answering. "We need to talk, Lorena. Something unexpected happened today," he said, indicating that she sit next to him. Lorena felt a cold on her back, but sat down, looking directly at her husband. "What is it?" she asked in advance. "A young woman named Daniela came here today. She found important documents that I had lost. Instead of asking for money, he made a rather unusual request." Arturo began, observing Lorena's reaction. "What kind of request?" asked Lorena, evidently distrustful in her tone. "She asked to be treated like our daughter for a week," said Arturo, waiting for her answer. Lorena opened her eyes, clearly surprised and uncomfortable. "What? And did you accept that?" exclaimed she in incredulity. "If I accept it, I know it's unusual, but there's something about her, something that touched me. She has a difficult story, and I think we can do this for her," Arturo explained, trying to calm his wife. "And where is she now?" asked Lorena, still not fully convinced, in the guest room. "She will stay with us this week. Please, Lorena. Try to understand. I think this is right," said Arturo, holding his hand. Lorena sighed, moving her head. "It's okay, I don't like it, but I'll try," she said reluctantly. Later during dinner, Daniela down the stairs shyly, finding Arturo and Lorena already sitting at the table. Lorena looked up and down, still suspicious. Arturo smiled at Daniela, indicating that he sit down. "Daniela, this is my wife Lorena," Arturo presented. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," Daniela said, trying to hide her nervousness. "Nice to meet you, Daniela. Arturo told me about your request. I hope you understand that this is very unusual for us," Lorena said with a cold tone. "I understand, ma'am, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity," Daniela humbly replied. "Tell us more about you, Daniela. How did you get here?" Lorena asked, with more softness but still full of distrust. Daniela breathed deeply before start talking. "I grew up in the streets. I have no family. I lost my mother when I was very small, and I never knew my father. Since then, I have survived alone, doing what I could to keep me alive," Daniela commented excitedly. Lorena watched carefully, trying to decipher the young woman in front of her. Arturo, on the other hand, felt a growing empathy for Daniela's story. "It must have been very difficult for you," said Arturo, softly. "Yes, sir, but I learned to be strong. Every day was a new fight when I found your documents. I knew they were important, and I wanted to do the right thing," Daniela continued, honesty shining in her eyes. "And what do you hope to gain from this?" Lorena asked, still trying to understand Daniela's motivations. "I don't want money, ma'am. I just want to know what it's like to have a family. Even if it's for a short time. I never had that, and it was something I always wanted," Daniela explained, her vulnerability. Despite his initial resistance, Arturo looked at Lorena, hoping that she would also feel the sincerity of Daniela. Slowly, he saw that Lorena's expression softened a little. "Well, Daniela, this week will be a test for all of us. I hope we can learn something from this experience," said Lorena, trying to show a little understanding. "Thank you, lady. I promise to do my best not to disappoint them," said Daniela, a slight smile of gratitude on her face. Dinner continued with lighter conversations, but Daniela's presence brought a new dynamic to the table. Daniela's week at Arturo's house began in a tense way, but slowly she began to take a different direction, introducing her to the employees and showing her all the corners of the mansion. Daniela, despite being out of her family environment, began to feel a little more comfortable, although the presence of Lorena and the constant look of judgment from her and other members of the family were a constant reminder that she was still a stranger there. In the first morning, Arturo decided that he and Daniela would have breakfast together. Lorena, visibly reluctant, sat next to Arturo, watching Daniela with critical eyes. "Daniela, do you have any idea what you would like to do today?" Arturo asked, trying to relieve the tension. "I would like to know more about your routine, sir. I want to learn how your day is," Daniela responded, nervous but determined to take the opportunity to the maximum. "Of course, Today I have some meetings in the office, but you can accompany me. I want you to see how my work is, said Arturo with a smiling face. Lorena turned her eyes, clearly disapproving the idea, but she said nothing. She limited herself to continuing her breakfast in silence, while Arturo and Daniela were talking. After lunch, Arturo took Daniela to his office at home, where he spent most of the time working. This is my workspace. Here I manage the administration of the companies and I have important meetings. I want you to feel free to ask anything, Arturo explained. Thank you, Arturo. I really appreciate this. I have never been in an office like this before, Daniela said, looking around with admiration. During the week, Arturo made sure to include Daniela in several family activities. They went for walks in the park where they could talk freely. On one of those occasions, while walking, Arturo asked about Daniela's past. Daniela, tell me more about your life on the streets. How did you survive all this time? Asked the genuinely interested. It was difficult, Arturo. Every day was a struggle. He was looking for food in the garbage. He did small jobs when he could, but the worst was loneliness. I always want to have someone to trust, Daniela replied, excited. Arturo felt a wave of empathy for Daniela. He himself knew what it was like to grow up without a father and felt a connection with the story of her. They spent the afternoon talking, sharing stories, and laughing together. Daniela began to experience what it was like to have a family, something she had never had before. However, not everyone was willing to accept Daniela so easily. Lorena, in particular, was a constant presence of disapproval. Where relatives of Arturo came to visit, the resistance was evident. The looks and whispers did not go unnoticed for Daniela. So, Daniela, are you a friend of Arturo? Asked one of the girls with a condescending tone. She is with us for a week. She is helping us with some personal matters, trying to divert the conversation. I understand. And where are you from, dear? Insisted the aunt, clearly distrustful. I grew up in the streets. Without family, Arturo and Lorena gave me an opportunity to experience what it is to have a home, even if it is for a short time. Daniela responded, keeping the composure. The distrustful looks and whispers continued. But Daniela remained firm. She knew that this opportunity was unique and would not let the disapproval of others affect her. Arturo perceived Daniela's discomfort and tried to integrate more activities that would unite them. One day, they spent the afternoon cooking together in the mansion kitchen. Do you like to cook, Daniela? Asked Arturo, while cutting vegetables. I never had many opportunities to cook, but it always seemed interesting to me. It is something that I never imagined doing, Daniela replied, smiling. We're going to do something simple, but special. It is a way of getting to know each other better, and also that you experience a little what a family routine is, said Arturo, animated. The days passed quickly, and the connection between Arturo and Daniela deepened. He began to see in her something more than a lost youth. He saw potential and determination. Daniela, on the other hand, began to feel a warmth and an acceptance that he had never experienced before. However, Lorena did not see this with good eyes. The week that began with hope and opportunities began to become tense in the mansion of Arturo. A palpable tension floated in the air. Lorena could not hide her discomfort with the presence of Daniela and the way Arturo treated her. Lorena began to suspect Daniela's intentions and did not hide her antipathy. The situation got worse one Thursday morning when Daniela entered the kitchen to prepare. What are you doing here? Asked Lorena. I just wanted to help. Arturo suggested that he could have breakfast today. Daniela replied, trying to keep calm. Of course, he suggested it, said Lorena with a sarcastic tone. Do you think you're going to beat everyone here with your false kindness? Daniela was surprised by the accusation and tried to defend herself. I'm not trying to beat anyone, Lorena. I just want to know what it's like to have a family, even if it's just for a short time. Family? Do you think you can come into our lives and just become a part of it? Don't be naive, Lorena replied, crossing her arms. I know it's hard to understand, but I'm not here to manipulate anyone. I just want to feel what it's like to have a home, Daniela insisted. feeling the tears threatening to flow. Lorena snorted in disbelief. I see right through you. You're using that victim story to gain Arturo's sympathy. And he's falling into your trap, Lorena accused. That's not true. Daniela raised her voice for the first time, feeling frustrated. All I asked for was a chance to feel what it's like to have a father, a family. I don't want anything more than that. The tension was almost palpable, and Lorena approached Daniela, her face a few centimeters from hers. I do not trust you, Daniela, and I will make sure that Arturo sees who you really are, said Lorena before turning around and leaving the kitchen. Daniela stood still, breathing deeply to calm down. She knew it would be difficult, but she did not expect it to be so painful. But Arturo's promise to treat her as a daughter for a week kept her firm. He could not let Lorena destroy this only chance to experience something he had always wanted. Later that day, Arturo realized that something was wrong. Daniela was quiet and seemed distant. He found her sitting in the garden, looking at the horizon with a sad expression. Asked Arturo, sitting next to him. No, Arturo, I'm not, said Daniela, looking at him with tears in her eyes. Lorena doesn't believe me. She thinks I'm here to manipulate you. Arturo sighed, passing his hand through his hair. I knew this would be difficult for her, but I didn't imagine it would come to this point. I'm going to talk to Lorena. This can't go on like this. He promised, Arthur worried. Thank you, Arthur, but I don't want to cause problems between you. I just wanted a little peace, family love, Daniela said sadly. Arthur touched Daniela's shoulder, trying to comfort her. I understand, Daniela, and I will do my best to make you have that experience. I promise we will solve this, he said, determined. That night, during dinner, the tension was back in the air. Lorena looked at Daniela with dismay, while Arturo tried to keep her peace. Finally, he could not stand it anymore and decided to face the situation. Lorena, we need to talk about this. We cannot continue like this, said Arturo firmly. Talk about what, Arturo? About how this girl is cheating you. Lorena responded, crossing her arms. Daniela is not here to deceive us. She just wants to experience what it is like to have a family. Please try to understand that, Arturo asked, looking deeply into her eyes. Understand? Do you want me to understand that you brought a stranger into our house and are treating her like a daughter? That's absurd, Lorena responded angrily. I know this is difficult for you, but we need to be more understanding. Daniela has no one. This is the first time she has experienced something similar to a home, said Arturo, trying to calm his wife. Lorena looked at Daniela, who was quiet and visibly uncomfortable. If you want to help her so much, it's fine, but I'm not going to pretend I'm happy with this, said Lorena, getting up from the table and leaving the dining room. Arturo sighed, feeling helpless. He looked at Daniela, who had her eyes down, fighting against tears. Everything will be fine, Daniela, I promise you, said Arturo, trying to console her. Thank you, Arturo. I just hope this doesn't cause you any more problems. She thanked him with her trembling words. That night was long and difficult for everyone in the mansion. The tension between Daniela and Lorena seemed unbearable, and Arturo knew that he would need all his patience and understanding to help resolve this situation. He was determined to fulfill his promise to Daniela, but he knew it would not be easy. And so, the week that began with hope and opportunities was turning into an emotional battle, and no one knew how it was going to end. While Arturo was beginning to fulfill his promise of treating Daniela as a daughter, the young beggar took advantage of the new experiences. But the tranquility was shaken when she met an old acquaintance, Leandro, while walking through the streets of the city. Leandro, a childhood friend who also lived in the streets, was surprised to see her in clean clothes and with a more calm expression. Daniela, is that you? Leandro asked, opening his eyes. Yes, it's me, Leandro. How are you? Daniela replied, smiling. I'm surviving. And you? It seems that your life has turned. Leandro commented curiously. It's a long story. I found a folder with important documents, and I decided to return it to the owner. He ended up giving me the opportunity to live with him for a week, explained Daniela. Leandro was impressed and asked for more details. Daniela took a photo of Arturo and Lorena from the pocket, showing her friend who the people involved were. This is Arturo, the owner of the documents. And this is Lorena, his wife, Daniela said, pointing the photo. Leandro frowned when he saw Lorena's photo. I know that woman. I saw her throwing garbage in a container on the street a few nights ago. It seemed strange to me because it was late at night and that street is quite isolated, and she clearly does not live close, revealed Leandro, surprised. Daniela felt a chill when she heard the words of Leandro. Could it be possible that Lorena had something to do with the disappearance of the documents? Decided that he needed to tell Arturo about this discovery. Later that night, Daniela approached Arturo while he was in the studio, reviewing some papers. Arturo, I need to talk to you. It is important, Daniela said in a serious voice. Of course, Daniela. What's going on? Arturo replied, looking at her with concern. Today I found a friend and showed him a photo of you and Lorena. He said he saw Lorena throwing garbage in a container on the street late at night. It seemed strange to him because the street was isolated and she clearly does not live around there, Daniela explained, trying to keep calm. Arturo remained silent for a moment, processing the information. Finally, he got up and walked. Looking out, are you saying that Lorena could have thrown my documents on purpose? Asked Arturo with a tense voice. I don't know, Arturo, but it seems strange, don't you think? Daniela said, approaching him. Arturo sighed, passing his hand over his face. This is serious, Daniela. I need to talk to Lorena about this. Let's solve it right now. Decided. Arturo and Daniela went to the living room, where Lorena was watching TV. He approached her with a serious expression. Lorena, we need to talk. Now, said Arturo, without surrounding. What's up, Arturo? Why so serious? Lorena asked, visibly irritated. Daniela met a friend today. Said he saw you throwing garbage in a container on the street. Late at night. I want to know what you were doing there, said Arturo, crossing his arms. Lorena became pale for a moment, but quickly recovered her composure. This is absurd, Arturo. Are you going to believe the word of a beggar? Lorena replied, trying to seem offended. It is not a question of believing or not. I just want an explanation, Arturo insisted. I will not throw anything. I do not know what they are talking about. This is ridiculous, said Lorena, with her voice trembling slightly. Arturo perceived Lorena's nervous reaction, and that only increased his suspicions. Lorena, please, just tell the truth. If you did something, we can solve it together, but I need to know the truth, asked Arturo, trying to keep calm. I already said I did nothing. Lorena, I am going to discover the truth. With or without your help, I hope you are being honest with me, Arturo said, before leaving the room. Lorena stood standing, breathing deeply, while Daniela watched her. Daniela, don't get where you're not called. You're not even family. You are an intruder who only causes problems, Lorena said with contempt. I'm not trying to cause problems, Lorena. I just want an opportunity to have a family, even if it's for a short time, Daniela replied, trying to keep her calm. Lorena approached Daniela with a fierce look. Family? Do you think you can just appear here and steal my husband? She accused Lorena, raising her tone of voice. I intervened quickly. Lorena, this is absurd. Daniela does not want to steal anything from anyone. She just wants to experience what it is to have a family, said Arturo, ending the discussion. Ah, of course. And am I supposed to believe that? A beggar who appears out of nowhere with a sad story, and you just swallow it? Lorena screamed, pointing to Daniela with the finger. Arturo, trying to keep up with the situation. Enough, Lorena. Let's finish this discussion. It's late. Let's go to sleep. Tomorrow we will talk calmly, Arturo declared, making a gesture so that everyone would leave. Daniela, feeling humiliated, went to the room they had assigned to her. Lorena still murmured insults as she climbed the stairs. Arturo observed everything with an uncomfortable feeling. Something was not right. Lorena's nervous reaction lit an alert in his mind. During the night, Arturo lay down on the bed, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, his mind boiling with Lorena's revelations and behavior. Leandro's words, Daniela's friend, resonated in his thoughts. How could Lorena be involved in something so low? And why? Tomorrow I will hire a detective. I need to understand what is really going on, Arturo decided in silence, with a determined mind. The next morning it started with a heavy weather in the mansion. Arturo went down to have breakfast with a firm decision to discover the truth. He called his trust assistant for a private conversation. Javier, I need you to find a good detective, someone discreet and efficient, Arturo instructed with a low voice. Of course, sir. Any specific problem? Asked curious Javier. I prefer not to go into details now. Just take care of this as soon as possible, answered Arturo, ending the conversation. Meanwhile, Daniela was trying to avoid Lorena and the tensions in the house. She felt like an intruder, but she was also determined to take advantage of the weak promise by Arturo. The young beggar knew that she needed to keep calm and be patient. Lorena, on the other hand, was restless. She realized that her reaction the night before had raised suspicions. She needed to be more careful and find a way to get Daniel away before things got worse. At the end of the afternoon, the detective hired by Arturo arrived at the mansion. Arturo received him in his office, far from Lorena's curious eyes. Detective Ricardo Belmonte arrived at the mansion. I need you to investigate my wife, Lorena. There is something strange happening, and I need the truth, said Arturo without any entanglements. Understood, sir. Any specific detail you should know? Asked the detective, noting the details provided by Arturo. Arturo hesitated for a moment, but he knew he needed to be totally transparent to obtain results. Lorena was accused of throwing important documents of mine. A friend of Daniela, the girl who is staying with us, said he saw a woman similar to Lorena throwing something in a garbage container on a street. I want you to check the security cameras on the indicated street and see if that is true, Ricardo hinted, writing down the information carefully. Okay, sir, I'll analyze the cameras and follow that track, he said, leaving the office with a calm determination. While Ricardo was starting his investigations, the tension in the mansion continued to grow. Lorena did everything possible to avoid Daniela, while Arturo tried to maintain peace. He knew that the truth was about to be revealed and feared the consequences. That night, before going to sleep, Arturo reflected on his decision. He knew that the investigation could destroy his marriage, but the truth was more important. Security and justice must prevail. Arturo thought while closing his eyes, waiting for the truth, no matter how painful it was, to bring peace back to his life. Ricardo needed to be fast and efficient, and Arturo needed to keep calm while waiting for the results. Daniela, without knowing Arturo's plans, continued trying to adapt to his new reality, although temporary, while Lorena felt that the fence was closing more and more. The next day, Ricardo returned to the mansion, had checked hours of recordings of security cameras, and was ready to inform his discoveries to Arturo. Mr. Arturo, I checked the recordings of the indicated street. Can we talk in private? Arturo took the detective to his office and closed the door, anxious about what was to come. What did you discover? Asked Arturo with the obvious tension in his voice. Ricardo took out a folder from his briefcase and opened it, revealing printed photos and screenshots of the recordings. In fact, Mrs. Lorena appears in the security cameras, throwing a garbage bag in a container on the street mentioned. The schedule coincides with what the well-known Daniela told, explained Ricardo, delivering the evidence to Arturo. Arturo looked at the images, his heart sinking as he saw his wife clearly involved in something so suspicious. "It cannot be," Arturo murmured, still incredulous. "Unfortunately, it is the truth." In addition, his movements were quite fictitious, as if I did not want to be seen, added Ricardo, with a serious tone. Arturo breathed deeply, trying to process the information. Lorena's reaction on the night of the confrontation now made much more sense. He knew he needed to act, but the idea of fighting his wife left him apprehensive. "Thank you. I will make good use of this information. You can go and keep this an absolute secret," Arturo instructed. "Of course, sir. I am at your disposal for any other need," said Ricardo. Leaving the office discreetly, Arturo stayed alone, looking at the evidence on the table. The pain of betrayal was overwhelming, but he knew he had to face the truth, no matter how hard it was. That night, after dinner, Arturo decided it was time to confront Lorena again. He called her to his office, trying to keep her calm. "Lorena, we need to talk," Arturo firmly said. Lorena entered the office, trying to hide her nervousness. He knew that Arturo was increasingly suspicious, but he did not expect what was to come. "What do you want to talk about?" she asked, trying to sound carefree. Arturo took the folder with the evidence and put it on the table in front of Lorena. "I want to talk about this," he said, opening the folder and showing the photos. Lorena paled when she saw the images, her confidence facade crumbling instantly. "This is not what it seems," Arturo tried to justify himself. "Then explain it, Lorena, because what I see here is my wife throwing away important documents that Daniela found and brought me," said Arturo, disappointed. Lorena could not find a convincing answer. "I want the truth. Why did you throw my documents?" Arturo went straight to the point, his eyes fixed on Lorena's. Lorena doubted, but the pressure was evident. "I knew I no longer had an escape." Finally, Lorena's mask fell and showed her true face. I did that because I wanted to hurt you, Arturo. I thought that, if you lost those documents, your life would become a chaos and I could get the fortune more easily," he confessed Lorena, with an aggressive voice. Arturo remained silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of the betrayal. He closed his eyes, trying to contain the anger and pain he felt. "How could you do this, Lorena?" The voice is low and full of disappointment. "I was desperate. Arturo, I felt trapped in this marriage, and I thought that was the only way out," answered Lorena, trying to justify her actions. "Desperate? Then you decided to destroy me?" "That is unacceptable, Lorena," said Arturo, getting up and starting to walk through the office. Lorena knew there was no turning back. He tried to approach Arturo, but he raised his hand, stopping her. "Don't come near me. You destroyed our trust, our family. I can't continue like this," Arturo declared firmly. "What are you going to do?" Lorena asked, starting to panic. "I'm going to ask for a divorce," Arturo said without hesitating. "No, Arturo, please don't do this," Lorena implored. Tears began to roll down her face. "There is nothing more to do, Lorena. You betrayed my trust in an unforgivable way. Our marriage has ended," Arturo said without turning away. Arturo's decision created an immediate chaos in the family. The news of divorce spread rapidly, causing commotion and indignation among family members and close friends. Lorena tried, in vain, to explain her actions to them, but her excuses sounded empty. Arturo tried to deal with the emotional devastation. He locked himself in his office, immersed in thoughts. Lorena was furious, packing her suitcases quickly as she threw hatred looks at everyone around her. Daniela, who was in the kitchen, could hear the screams and murmurs that came from the upper floor. The atmosphere in the mansion was tense, loaded with a negative energy that seemed to impregnate every corner of the house. Arturo, in the office, was waiting for the inevitable final confrontation. He knew that Lorena would not leave without a last attempt to sow discord. Lorena hurriedly, his expression a mixture of anger and pain. Seeing Daniela in the kitchen, he stopped, and for a moment, he looked like he was going to break down. But instead, he approached, his eyes flashing with fury. "You got what you wanted, right?" Lorena said, her voice thick with venom. "Always pretending to be the poor, helpless orphan. But I see through you, Daniela. I see your true nature." Daniela turned, surprised by the intensity of the attack. She kept calm, knowing that answering would only make the situation worse. She didn't want to cause any trouble. "Lorena just wanted to help," said Daniela. "Help?" Lorena laughed, a bitter and despicable sound. "You came here with a plan. You deceived everyone, especially Arturo. But you are not going to deceive me." At that moment, Arturo appeared at the kitchen door, attracted by the sound of the discussion. He watched Lorena for a moment before intervening. "That's enough, Lorena. Daniela is not to blame for anything. She only took to light the truth that you tried to hide," said Arturo sadly. Lorena turned to Arturo, her gaze softening for a brief moment before hardening again. "The truth? The truth is that you are letting that girl get into our life, destroy our marriage," accused Lorena, her words full of bitterness. Arturo sighed, passing his hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "Our marriage was already destroyed. Lorena, you threw our votes along with those documents. Don't try to blame Daniela for your actions," he said with a softer but firm tone. Lorena seemed about to explode again, but something in Arturo's firmness stopped her. I knew there was no turning back. With a last look of contempt for Daniela, she took her suitcases and headed to the door. "This is not over. Arturo, you will regret treating me like this." With a low and dangerous tone. "I have already regretted many things, Lorena, but protecting my family is not one of them," said Arturo. His words sounded sad. Daniela watched in silence as Lorena left the mansion, closing the door tightly. The sound resounded throughout the house. Leaving a heavy silence at her step, Arturo approached. "I'm sorry you have to go through this, Daniela," he said sincerely. "This is not your fault." Daniela denied with her head, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. "I know, Mr. Arturo, but I'm sorry this happened to you. It wasn't what I wanted," she replied softly. Arturo smiled sadly, placing a comforting hand on Daniela's shoulder. "Let's get over this together, Daniela. A new family, based on truth and trust," he said, trying to find hope amid the turbulence. As the night fell, the mansion seemed quieter than ever. Arturo and Daniela knew that they still had a long way ahead, but the honesty and courage of both had planted the seeds of a new life. A life where true trust and love could, finally, flourish. The next morning, Arturo was in the kitchen preparing coffee when Daniela appeared. He smiled when he saw her, trying to bring a little normality to the recent chaos. "Good morning, Daniela. Did you sleep well?" he asked calmly and warmly. Daniela replied, giving him back a smile. "Please, only Arturo. We are all at home now," he said, giving him a cup of coffee. They sat at the table, sharing a comfortable silence for a moment. Arturo looked at Daniela, recognizing the strength and resilience that she showed despite the adversities. "Daniela, I want to thank you for your honesty. You brought to light something that I could not see. And that's why I'm grateful," said Arturo, with eyes full of sincerity. "I just wanted to help, Mr. Arturo. I didn't want to cause problems," answered Daniela, feeling a knot in her throat. "You didn't cause problems, Daniela. You revealed the truth, and that's why you deserve my respect," Arturo said, offering a sad smile. Daniela felt a wave of relief mixed with sadness. Arturo continued, "Daniela, I know that this week has been difficult for you, and for me too, but I want you to know that I am here for you. We are going to overcome this together, said Arturo with sincerity. Daniela felt, feeling a wave of emotion. I know, Arturo, and I am very grateful for it, since I found those documents. My life changed completely. I never thought I would find someone willing to help me like this, she said, trembling voice. Arturo extended his hand and took Daniela's, a gesture that spoke more than any word. You deserve an opportunity to have a better life, Daniela. And if it depends on me, you will have it. Now you are part of this family, he said. Arturo made sure to include Daniela in all activities of the house. They started walking together through the garden and shared their life experiences. One afternoon, while they were in the garden, Arturo looked at Daniela with a glow in his eyes. You know, Daniela, since you entered my life, I realized how much I was losing the business. And what really matters, Arturo? Daniela, curious, asked. The family, love, trust, things that money cannot buy. And you reminded me, replied, smiling. Daniela felt that her eyes were filled with tears. She never imagined it could mean so much to someone, especially for a man like Arturo. Thanks, Arturo. I never had a real family. But now, I feel that I finally found a home, she said, excited. Arturo hugged Daniela, and at that moment, both felt that they were on the right path to heal the wounds of the past and build a future together. As the days went by, Arturo began to plan Daniela's future with more attention. Hired private teachers to help her recover the time lost in school and encouraged her to think about her dreams and aspirations. Daniela, I want you to think about what you really want to do, whether it is to study, work, or anything else. I will be here to support you, said Arturo during a dinner. Daniela smiled, feeling safer and more confident than ever. I always wanted to study, maybe go to college. But I never thought it was possible, he admitted. Then let's make it possible. Let's work together so you can fulfill that dream, said Arturo, determined. Arturo's unconditional support made Daniela feel valued and loved. He dedicated himself to his studies, and Arturo was always by his side, offering guidance and encouragement. It was not only a matter of financial or material support. It was a genuine bond of mutual affection and respect. Arturo saw in Daniela the daughter he never had, and Daniela saw in Arturo the father he always wished for. On a quiet night, sitting on the balcony, watching the sunset, Arturo took Daniela's hand and said, Daniela, you have brought light to my life in a moment of darkness. I know we've been through a lot together, but I want you to know that now you are my daughter, and nothing can change that. Daniela looked at him, feeling completely accepted and loved. Thank you, Arturo. I feel the same. You are the father I always wanted to have, she replied with tears of happiness in her eyes. From that moment on, Arturo's house was not just a luxurious mansion, but a real, where love, trust, and mutual support reigned. Together, Arturo and Daniela faced the future with courage and hope, knowing that, whatever happens, they would always have each other. I invite you to leave your comment with your opinion on history and to give a like, subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue with our work. And now, a new story is on your screen. I hope you enjoy this new session very much.